It's about 1:30 in the morning, and I'm still up, so I think I'm just going to deliver these so I don't have to wake up early in the morning. You can see the two taillights and then the one that had the back part broken off. This is day 4.5 of charging Lime scooters. So one very big problem to delivering these Lime scooters at night, or even picking them up, is when you put them in the service mode, the headlights on them turn on. You can see they're pretty freaking bright, right? So I'm about to deliver these with a light on in the back of my truck. Now, for my truck, it doesn't really matter because these are tinted, and there's actually two windows in between that are both tinted. My truck is very, very dark in between the cab and the bed, so I'm not going to be that disturbed by this. But for people who are delivering these in SUVs that are open inside, or like a Suburban or something, they are going to have a light on inside their cab. And if you've ever had to drive with a light on inside your cab, you know it's freaking annoying because it diminishes your ability to see the actual road. So this is one thing that they need to work on, is have some mechanism for us to be able to turn that light off, because sometimes it's off and it just pops on. Some of them don't even have the light turning on sometimes. You don't know what you're going to get. It's a mixed bag. I've heard of other drivers, other juicers who have been putting towels over them, and I guess that would work for them. But just the need to have to put a towel over it because the lights are on, that should tell you that they need to make this something where that you can turn the lights off, This is what it looks like outside my truck right now. This is awkward. It looks like I stole them. You can see the glow of the headlight off the truck topper. I just thought I'd highlight that. Anyways, it's not affecting my driving really at all, but I can see how in smaller cars it would. I also wanted to just briefly touch on this whole 7 a.m. thing. 7 a.m. is the cutoff time whereby you can deliver your scooters by 7 a.m. in order to get paid out. Now, I understand that that's probably because they've mapped out demand and it all happens after 7 a.m., right? The problem on the juicing side, when you're trying to service these things for people, is that there are more scooters out there right now that I would pick up on this trip right now. It's like, 1:30 in the morning. I deliver these and then go pick up some more on this trip, but I can't reliably say that I'm going to be able to deliver them by 7 a.m. because it's taken about 5 or 6 hours for a completely, drained scooter to charge. So I'd have to wait till after 7 a.m. to not get penalized. And that's penalized in the payout or penalized in the ability to buy more chargers. Those are the two things that they ding you with. People who have a perfect record of delivering the scooters on time, they're the ones who get first shot at buying more chargers from them. Plus, if you don't deliver it by 7 a.m., you don't get full payout. And they don't tell you, what is the sliding scale of that payout? How much do you get dinged if it's 7:01? They don't tell you that. It's not an upfront thing. And after a while of people getting dinged, I'm sure it'll just become community knowledge in a subreddit somewhere, that people will share, oh, it's not that bad, or, oh, it's horrible. I don't know. But what I do know is I could be charging more scooters for them right now, except for that they have that 7 a.m. rule. And if there were some, like, side rule that said, well, any scooters after, say, midnight, you get an extra, like, 5 hours after, like, you know, you must deliver them by noon, you know, something like that, then I would go ahead and pick them up and feel like I could reliably get them back out. But, yeah. It affects people's sleep schedule, you know. If you're driving at 9 p.m., and you're collecting all these scooters, like you start at 9 when they release them all, and, you know, however many hours it takes you to get back. It could be that you're really good at this thing, and it only takes you like an hour or two, right? But then, it could be that you have a horrible night at it. I've had horrible nights at it. I know that it's possible to have a horrible night at this thing, right? And so, if you take, say, 3 hours out there after 9 p.m., you're already after midnight, right? And then you've got to wake up early to serve these things. So let's say you want to serve them by 6 a.m. to make sure that you don't get hit with the 7 a.m. rule. You're probably waking up at, like, at least 5:30, because some people can just roll out of bed and do this, right? So you're only getting continuous sleep, you know, on a bad night from midnight to 5:30. That's 5.5 hours, right? But that's not enough, you know. That's not enough for a person. So then what do? You know? Because driving while you're tired can be just as dangerous as driving drunk, right? Driving while exhausted is, you know, they've done tests, you know, they've done studies. And if you don't think so, Google it. And don't at me, bro. Anyways, 5.5 hours is not enough sleep for those people who, like, you know, they're really hard up for money, and they're going at it full bore, and they will search and search and search so that every last lime is picked up in the city. It's just not enough time. I think if you pick up limes after a certain hour, you should get extra hours to put them back out, just to make sure that you have charge time and sleep time, you know, both of which are very, very important in this game. So as you can see, we're right next to the original Chubby's, and we're right outside of a 7-Eleven, about to serve these limes here. Go. Here's one. Come on. Am I putting too much shadow on it? It's got a flashlight function. Oh, it's already caught that one. I can see. Now I've got 2 out of 4. And now I've got 3 out of 4. Okay. It wasn't that it didn't catch it. So these are the limes here. Let me turn this back. That's the way they want them. Canted to the side like that. Serve them. And now line them in a row, 4 max. Turn handles bars to the left. Good enough. So now that I've served them, the lights have turned out. So at least they're saving battery that way and they're not becoming a roadway nuisance. So that's nice. And that, I think, is it for my Lime scooter charging days. I got a couple. I saw how it works. You know, I've explored that part thoroughly. I know how long it takes to charge them. I can see a few good strategies at how to make it work for someone. Anyways, yeah. In ramble style, here's what I've noted. First off, there's just not enough scooters, period. And I mean this from the perspective of a juicer, but also as a rider. I think that the saturation of scooters right now is just not enough for this to be a very meaningful endeavor for the company, for Lime. Because I know what they tried to do with a lot of these cities is just dump all their scooters on the cities and ask for forgiveness later. And then these cities started making laws about it, right? And this is not just them. It's a Bird, it's, you know, Jump, it's all these other companies. They've basically made city councils have to address new gig economy problems, you know, a lot quicker than they might have had to do in the past, because technology just keeps on improving. And then now there's this dockless bike share and dockless scooter share economy out there, and none of the cities wanted to be, you know, left, you know, powerless against these companies like they were left with Uber and Lyft just taking over and ruining the cab industry for cab drivers that you know, might have invested into medallions as a way to have a retirement fund by selling off their medallions when they were through cab driving, you know, stuff like that. I've seen a couple documentaries on that part of the gig economy, how it's just really upended things. And really, there are some cities that didn't rein it in quick enough, and their cities just got inundated with bikes that started ending up in rivers. You can read about what happened in Dallas with all that. Yeah. For me, I think the whole point of them getting a jump on things was to saturate the market with their own brand name right away with this new technology, so that they could control it later when it was, you know, regulated and whatnot. And what happened was they ended up getting regulated to the point where they're only allowed to have a certain number of scooters or bikes in the city. Well, since there's a limited number of scooters, one, they can't get the kind of saturation they need for people to be able to reliably count on them as an alternative means of transportation. Therefore, they're not going to become a mainstay in people's lives, right? And two, there's all these people who want to be in on the other side of things and look at this as a new form of income, and they're limited by every other person with a wall outlet, not even a car, just a wall outlet in their home, wanting to be a part of this economy. So if you can't wrap your head around this because it's scooters and charging and whatnot, think of it this way. What if every other house in the entire city had somebody who aspired to be an Uber driver, and the only bar to entry for Uber drivers is have a clean driving record, right? And you can even rent a car through a rental service to use for Uber. They've partnered with rental car services, so you don't even have to have a car. You just have to have a clean driving record, right? Well, if everyone did it all at the same time, then there wouldn't be enough rides to go around for everyone, and everyone would starve, right? Same thing with these scooters, except for they don't check your driving record when you become a juicer for Lime. I can't speak about Bird. I haven't tried that company. I chose Lime for this little life experiment. And so right now I'm finding that when I try to follow a map to get to a scooter, more than likely it's going to disappear before I get there. I've used the term hungry hippos before, and it shouldn't be that way. There should be an equilibrium that they can come to between the demand for the scooters from the public, in order to make this a public utility that people can actually count on, and the supply of juicers that have been let into the program through the company. And what's artificially affecting things right now is the demand has been kind of restricted to the point where the supply of juicers it's not lucrative for them anymore, because people want to ride these things. I mean, all these scooters are getting driven down to almost zero battery, and people would love to be able to find them when they want a ride, but there's just not enough of these scooters to go around the city for them to always have a scooter available when they want to ride. And that's on the government stepping in and putting in restrictions, And so I can see this economy going through many, many different changes in the coming years. The first of which is winter is coming. These scooter companies started out in San Diego, where it never freezes. Well, this is Denver, and let me tell you, freezing weather does horrible things to batteries. Plus, having ridden these scooters, took them for a joyride, because as a juicer, you can actually just ride unlimited until you want to charge it. You just got to have it placed out with a full charge at 7 a.m. But my girlfriend and I, we went on a little joyride yesterday. Yeah, it was pretty nice. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, winter is coming. Not only is it going to be a hazard for the riders to possibly come across a patch of ice, because these scooters, the tires are either they come without much road grip, and at the other end is they're going to wear down, because people drive it like it's not theirs, because it isn't. Right? It's the tragedy of the commons here. So, when winter comes, you're going to have almost bald tires meeting, black ice, and you're going to have just too much of an accident problem. And I know, in the terms of service, it's like I waive my right to sue them. That's not the issue then. what is the issue is optics. Like, do you want your company to be known for the dangerous ride that it would be? You know, you're probably going to see these companies pull their scooters sometime after Halloween and not have them back out before, say, the 1st of April, you know, because just the freezing weathers overnight are going to make some of these batteries explode and leak. That would be horrible optics for them, you know, plus they're losing money. You know, better to have them in a climate-controlled storage area, you know, for the winter, and then put all the bikes back out, because they'd lose a hell of a lot of money for all of the batteries that would start to crack and leak because of the freezing weather. So, I'll say my last thought on this, having chased a few of these scooters into apartment complexes where people had them on balconies, you know, saving them for later, or people hid them behind doors or behind a fence or something. This really is the tragedy of the commons. You know, it shows me, like, if you were to take, like, communism and do some reductio ad absurdum, and say that nobody owned anything, and so that, like, your neighbor could just come over and borrow your car, right? This is the shit that would happen. You would find all sorts of broken fenders and, you know, broken lights on things, and, you know, nothing is maintained very well. Not a one of the scooters that I picked up in this little life experiment had a working bell on it. The cha-ching, cha-ching. Not a one of them. They were all broken. They all had working brakes, thank goodness. But the rear fender, you know, that was earlier in this video, and the stoplight on it, not very good design if the stoplight can be broken off with the very easily broken off rear fender. Yeah, the headlights that sometimes work, sometimes don't. It's people thinking that they can just store them wherever so that they can use them again. They're just going to hoard them, you know. And as long as they're not on the rental bill, you know, if they think that they're not being charged for it, they'll when they're off the clock, they'll try to do something to manipulate it so that they will have the availability of that scooter, right? And part of that is the tragedy of the commons, and part of it is they're artificially restricting the number of scooters that are allowed in the city to the point where they can't meet demand. You know? And it'll get to the point where people will buy their own chargers, maybe, you know, and start charging these things during off hours. Like, when they know that they're going to want the scooter, they'll rent it, have it in their place, and then, you know, charge it when they're not being billed for it, so that it'll be full charge when it comes time that they want it again. You know, as long as they can keep the charge over 50%, no juicer is going to come looking for it. You know, but at that point, there comes a point where, you know, a 30-minute ride on one of these things works out to be about $5, and you could buy your own, like, of the same value, same model, for about $500. So then, you know, I don't know. Well, I'm going to get back to some of my other hobbies now, and I'm going to clear my plate of this one. Sell out with my chargers while the selling is good, and yeah, hope it's been informative to everybody else. It has been for me. in that I can really feel the struggle of people who need these gig economy jobs to get by. And this was one that I could explore with you guys in a little video series that I found that I was able to do, that I was interested in. There were others that I could have chosen that I wouldn't be able to share with you, such as Care.com, where people have been listing their loved ones need somebody to sit with them and talk with them for 3 hours while somebody goes to a class, little jobs like that, where they want all the way up from wanting a doctor on his spare time down to wanting like a CNA or a nurse, down to wanting someone with like a high school diploma who can just tolerate an 80-year-old with Alzheimer's who won't shut up. It spans the gamut of all of these in-home care jobs, and you should, if you want to see something that really shocks you as far as not requiring background checks enough, check that out. But anyways, you can't share things like that in videos as far as a gig job, because you'd have to get you'd have to get a release from the people who have the authority over the person that you'd be caring for, and also you'd run into a whole bunch of confidentiality issues, and you'd be dealing more with people, So that's a whole other thing that I thought of, that I thought I might want to explore that, but I can't do it in a way where I can share it with you. These scooter jobs, they were a lot more removed from having to deal with any people directly, and so it really lent itself to me being able to film what I was doing and explain what I was doing and tell you the entire story. I'm probably going to be curious about all of these entrepreneurial endeavors and gig economy jobs for the rest of my life, but those that I can explore and share a little bit of my journey with you guys, those are the ones that you guys are going to see from me in the future as they come. So take care, and only do what you can take on, and remember, self-care.